As Australians become increasingly focused on sustainable and healthy living, the need to have an up-to-date framework of guidelines to follow and use to model our own food choices is imperative. Becoming accustomed to the traditional food pyramid, the importance of consuming dairy as a calcium source to maintain bone health prevails. But with changes in the food science industry, health professionals and consumers are questioning whether this is in fact an important part of our diet. Michael Gerard, a vegan of 7 years, was recently diagnosed with osteoporosis. With an absence of dairy in his diet, Michael resorts to plant-based sources of calcium and other supplements to maintain bone health, and says public information in Australia on the issue is lacking.
Disappointing, I think Australia's lagging a little bit behind, for example, our American counterparts. As the American Dietary Association, in its 2011 position statement, wrote that an appropriately planned vegan diet is adequate for all life stages. At the same time, you have the National School of Public Health at Harvard publishing position papers in which they are already questioning the importance of dairy as a calcium source.
And health professionals in Australia are asking the same questions, following the National Health and Medical Research Council's recent revision of the Australian Dietary Guidelines. Open for public consultation until February, the guidelines were formulated based on more than 55,000 scientific papers. But health groups and individuals believe the draft guidelines inadequately promote concerns of bone health, and they have acted by sending submissions to the NHMRC. Jessica Ang is one of them. A vegan and forensic psychologist, Jessica made a submission to the NHMRC based on her concerns of the guidelines' promotion of dairy and exclusion of plant-based sources.
I guess that there was a lack of information about how to obtain calcium from anything other than dairy. So, there are people who are lactose intolerant as well, so not just for personal reasons, but they don't, react well to dairy. So, there just wasn't a lot of information about other sources. They had tables with dairy and alternatives, but no alternatives listed. It was like yogurt, cheese, and it was all dairies.
Prompted by promotion of this information in the workplace, Jessica also noted the misconceptions of bone health, calcium, and osteoporosis.
As an employee of our area health service, we all got a message from the dietitians about the April Falls Challenge. So during April, be aware of your bone health and consume lots of dairy. So they were really pushing 3 servings of dairy a day. And as someone who doesn't consume dairy and thought it was sort of inaccurate to say you need it to prevent osteoporosis, I wanted to reply to that. Finding evidence, longitudinal studies, meta-analyses showing that dairy is not essential for bone health or to prevent osteoporosis.
And Mr. Gerard also supports this view.
Why is it that the very same countries that report the highest incidence of osteoporosis, and we're talking typically North America, Britain, Scandinavia, also paradoxically report the highest consumption of dairy products?
In its submission to the NHMRC, the Vegan Society called for the guidelines to not discriminate against those Australians who have opted for a plant-based diet. Representing naturopath Robin Shooter attributes this choice to the benefits of plant-based sources that absorb more calcium at a higher rate than animal protein.
Dairy foods are framed in the guidelines as being the preeminent source of calcium. And this is just plain wrong, because although dairy products contain a lot of calcium, that calcium is really quite poorly absorbed. We get much more what we call bioavailable, that is able to be absorbed and utilised calcium from plant foods, so particularly the low oxalate green vegetables, leafy greens such as bok choy, kale, cabbage, broccoli and so forth. These green vegetables offer us much more absorbable calcium, so we get more absorbable calcium out of the same portion sizes.
But with the majority of the population continually opting for an omnivorous diet, many health professionals disagree and maintain the belief that dairy is crucial for most Australians.
Yeah, I do support that dairy should be one of the primary sources of calcium intake for bone health. Dairy products have the highest concentration of calcium per 100 mils or per 100 grams than anything else out there. So it's one of those things where, you only need 2 serves, and then you can 2 to 3 serves per day, and you can get an adequate intake of calcium for bone health.
Miss Maston, an Australian practicing dietitian, attributes high rates of dairy consumption to its accessibility.
Dairy is just easy to get in. So in reality, a lot of people don't have enough time to prepare foods that, are alternatives. For example, using soy things in cooking and stuff like that, or don't know how to use those types of foods. So having a glass of milk is just easy, you know, in the morning with your cereal, or having a yogurt as a snack. They're really portable things that can be easily consumed. And of course, you know, they're enjoyable.
Following the NHMRC's evaluation of over 200 submissions, the finalised guidelines will be released later this year.
Because it forms the basis of nutritional and dietary advice, then yes, it is a very important document, and it's a shame that consideration isn't given, as in America, to at least recognition of the vegan lifestyle and appropriate guidelines for that dietary choice.